She discovered she was pregnant by her cold Korean CEO boss. He trapped her in his penthouse when she tried to run. She fell in love. He broke down his walls. But his mother? She declared war. If you're just joining us, you've missed the scandal, the secrets, and the fight for survival. This is episode 3. The final battle. Zola and Minjun versus the world. Let's finish this. The war started at 6:47 a.m. with a phone call from Minjun's head of PR. Zola woke to the sound of Minjun's voice, sharp and cold in a way she hadn't heard since before the pregnancy reveal. She padded out of the guest room to find him on the terrace, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand gripping the railing so hard his knuckles were white. "I don't care how it happened. I care about containing it. Kill the story. By the editor if you have to. I want this buried by noon." He ended the call and stood there, staring out at Seoul as the city woke up, completely unaware that somewhere below, his life was being torn apart in headlines. "What happened?" Zola asked softly. Minjun turned. His face was the glacier again, cold, controlled, lethal. But his eyes gave him away. They were burning with rage. "My mother leaked the story to the press. JS Holdings CEO in scandalous affair with foreign assistant. Complete with photos of you entering this building." Zola's stomach dropped. "The pregnancy? Not yet. But that'll be next. She's playing this strategically. First, she destroys your reputation. Then mine. Then she'll reveal the pregnancy as the trap I fell into." He pulled out his tablet and showed her the article. The headline made her feel sick. CEO Park Min-jun's secret. Foreign assistant living in his penthouse. The article was poison wrapped in journalism. It did not outright call her a gold digger or him a fool, but the implications were clear. Every line was designed to humiliate her and damage him. "They make it sound like I'm your mistress," Zola whispered. "They make it sound exactly how my mother wanted it to sound," Minjun said grimly. "This is just the opening move." His phone rang again. Then again. Within 10 minutes, it was ringing nonstop. Board members. Business partners. Reporters. The vultures were circling. By 9 a.m., Minjun had received calls from 7 board members demanding an emergency meeting. By 10 a.m., 3 business partners had pulled out of pending deals. By 11 a.m., the stock price of JS Holdings had dropped 4%. Zola sat on the penthouse sofa, watching Minjun field call after call, and felt herself becoming smaller with each conversation. This was her fault. Her presence in his life was destroying everything he'd built. "I should leave," she said when he finally put the phone down.
"No.
Minjun, you're losing millions. Your reputation can be rebuilt. You can't. If you leave now, if you run, my mother wins. And I will not give her that satisfaction. This isn't about winning or losing. This is about your company. Your life. My life is with you," he said fiercely. "The company is just money and power. You and our child, that's everything." His phone buzzed with a text. He looked at it, and his face went even colder. "Emergency board meeting. They're calling for my resignation." Zola stood. "Then I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not. They'll tear you apart." "Let them try," Zola said, channeling a strength she didn't know she had. "I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not the shameful secret your mother wants me to be. I'm the woman you love, the mother of your child. And if they want to judge me for that, they can do it to my face." Minjun stared at her for a long moment. Then something shifted in his expression, pride mixed with love. "You're magnificent," he said quietly. "I'm terrified. But I'm done running." They arrived at JS Holdings together. The building that had been Zola's workplace for 3 years now felt hostile. Employees stared as they walked through the lobby. Whispers followed them into the elevator. The boardroom was on the top floor, all glass and power, designed to intimidate. 12 board members sat around the table. All men, all Korean, all looking at Zola like she was an invasive species that needed to be removed. And at the head of the table, in Minjun's seat, sat his mother. "You're in my chair," Minjun said coldly. "Am I?" Mrs. Park smiled. "The board and I have been discussing the future of JS Holdings. Given recent Complications. We thought it best I chair this meeting. One of the board members, old, wealthy, everything Zola wasn't, cleared his throat. Mr. Park, we're concerned about the scandal. The company's reputation has always been impeccable. This situation is damaging our standing. What situation? Minjun's voice was ice. Me having a relationship with a woman I love? A subordinate. Another board member interjected. The optics are terrible. Sexual harassment lawsuits, abuse of power. She's not my subordinate anymore, Minjun interrupted. She resigned. I accepted. Our relationship is personal, not professional. But the photos show her living in your penthouse, Mrs. Park said sweetly. How long has this been going on? While she was still your employee. Zola felt every eye in the room turn to her. Judging. Condemning. Assuming the worst. She lifted her chin and met Mrs. Park's gaze directly. I worked for Mr. Park for 3 years, Zola said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Our relationship was completely professional during that time. What happened between us occurred after I resigned. And frankly, it's none of your business. It becomes our business when it affects the company, a board member said. Stock prices are down. Partners are pulling out. This scandal was manufactured by the woman sitting in my chair, Minjun said, his voice cutting through the room. My mother leaked those photos. My mother called the press. This isn't a scandal, it's sabotage. Mrs. Park's smile never faltered. I'm protecting the company. Protecting our legacy. Something you seem to have forgotten in your infatuation. Then let me be very clear, Minjun said. He pulled Zola to his side, his arm around her waist. Zola Adeyemi is the woman I love. She's carrying my child. And if this board has a problem with that, you can have my resignation right now. But know this. I'll take my clients, my projects, and my reputation with me. I'll start a new company. And JS Holdings will crumble without me. Silence crashed through the boardroom. The board members looked at each other. At Mrs. Park. Back at Minjun. Because Minjun wasn't bluffing. And they knew it. He'd built this company from nothing. His name opened doors. His reputation closed deals. Without him, JS Holdings was just another corporation. One board member, younger than the others, more progressive, spoke up. Perhaps we're being hasty. Mr. Park's personal life is his own business. As long as there was no impropriety while Miss Adeyemi was employed. There wasn't, Zola said firmly. Then this is a private matter, the board member concluded. The stock will recover. The press will move on to the next scandal. We should focus on damage control, not drastic measures. Mrs. Park's composure finally cracked. You're making a mistake. All of you. This woman will destroy him. Destroy this company. And when it all falls apart, don't come crying to me. She stood and walked out, her designer heels clicking against marble like gunshots. The board meeting dissolved into murmurs and reassurances. Minjun had won. For now. But as they left the boardroom, Zola felt the weight of what had just happened settle onto her shoulders. She'd just become the most hated woman in Seoul's business elite. And Mrs. Park's war was far from over. 3 days after the board meeting, Zola woke up bleeding. Not much. Just spots. But enough to make her heart stop. She sat on the bathroom floor, staring at the evidence of something going wrong, and felt her entire world tilt. No. Please, no. Minjun was already at work, an early meeting with investors trying to salvage the deals Mrs. Park had destroyed. Zola grabbed her phone with shaking hands. He answered on the first ring. I'm bleeding, she said, her voice breaking. Minjun, I'm bleeding. I'm on my way. Don't move. I'm calling the doctor now. 20 minutes later, Minjun burst through the penthouse door with Dr. Kong, the best obstetrician in Seoul, someone who made house calls only for people with unlimited resources. The examination was gentle but thorough. Zola lay on the guest bed while the doctor performed an ultrasound, Minjun gripping her hand so tightly it hurt. The seconds stretched into eternity. Finally, Dr. Kong looked up with a small smile. The baby is fine. Strong heartbeat. The bleeding is from stress, Your body's way of telling you to slow down. Complete bed rest for the next week. No work, minimal stress, lots of water. Zola burst into tears. Minjun thanked the doctor, saw her out, and returned to find Zola still crying on the bed. He climbed onto the bed beside her and pulled her into his arms. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. The stress, the board meeting, everything." "Stop," he said firmly. "This is not your fault. This is my mother's fault. This is the board's fault. This is everyone who made you feel like you had to fight for your right to exist in my life." "I can't do this anymore," Zola whispered. "I thought I was strong enough. But I'm not. Every day is a battle. Your mother, the press, the board, the employees who look at me like I'm destroying you. I can't." Her voice broke completely. "Maybe your mother is right. Maybe I should take the money and go. Give you your life back. Let you find someone who belongs in your world." Minjun went completely still. "Look at me," he said quietly. She did. His eyes were wet with tears he refused to let fall. "When I was 7 years old, my father walked out the door and never came back. My mother spent the next 14 years trying to find him, to understand why, to fix whatever she'd done wrong. She died never knowing." Zola had heard this story before, but something in his voice told her there was more. "I found him," Minjun said. 3 years ago. He's in Busan. Remarried. Has 2 kids. A whole new life. I hired a private investigator because I needed to know. Needed to understand what made me so unlovable that he'd rather start over with strangers than stay with his own son." "Oh God," Zola breathed. "I never confronted him. Never let him know I knew. Because I realized the truth was worse than not knowing. He didn't leave because of me. He left because he wanted a different life. And that meant I was disposable." A tear finally escaped, tracking down his cheek. "I built JS Holdings to prove I wasn't disposable. To prove I was worth something. Worth staying for. And then you came into my life. And for the first time, I felt like maybe I was worth loving. Not because of my money or my power or my company. Just me." Zola's chest ached. "So when you talk about leaving, about taking my mother's money, about giving me my life back, what I hear is that I'm disposable again. That you'd rather have money than me. That our child would be better off without their father." "That's not what I meant," Zola said, tears streaming down her face. "I just don't want to be the reason you lose everything." "You are everything," Minjun said fiercely. "The company is just a building. Money is just numbers. But you're the first person who made me believe I deserved to be loved. You're the first person I've ever wanted to build a life with. You're carrying my child. How can you think any of that is disposable?" "I'm scared," Zola admitted. "Scared I'm not enough. Scared your mother will find a way to take our baby. Scared that loving you means losing myself." "Then let me be scared with you," Minjun said. "Let me fight for you. Let me prove that you belong here. Not because of me, but because you built a place for yourself. Because you're brilliant and strong and you deserve everything." He placed his hand over her stomach. "This baby deserves parents who fight for each other, who don't run when things get hard. I'm not my father, Zola. I'm not going to disappear when life gets difficult. I'm going to stay. I'm going to love you. And I'm going to make damn sure our child never questions whether they're wanted." Zola kissed him then, soft and desperate, and full of all the words she couldn't say. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. "I'm not taking your mother's money," she said firmly. "I'm not leaving. I'm staying and fighting. For us. For our family." "Good," Minjun said, relief flooding his voice. "Because I already transferred the deed for the Itaewon building into your name. Your restaurant. Your dream. It's yours whether you stay with me or not." Zola pulled back to stare at him. "You what?" "The building. It's in your name. Full ownership. I can't take it back even if I wanted to. Because you deserve something that's entirely yours. Something my mother can't touch. Something that proves you belong here, in Seoul, building your dreams." "Minjun. I'm also hiring a contractor. The renovations start next week. If you want. If you're ready. Zola's hands shook as she covered her mouth. My restaurant, she whispered. You're really doing this. We're doing this. Together. You design it. You run it. You make it everything you've dreamed. And I'll be there cheering you on. Not as your boss. Not as your investor. As your partner. For the first time in days, Zola felt hope bloom in her chest. Afro-Soul Kitchen, she said softly. That's what I want to call it. A fusion of my home and my future. It's perfect, Minjun said, kissing her forehead. You're perfect. They spent the rest of the day in bed, not making love, just being together. Planning. Dreaming. Healing. Zola sketched menu ideas while Minjun made calls to contractors. They talked about the color scheme, warm earth tones with pops of vibrant African prints. About the music, Afrobeats, mixed with K&D. About the signature dish, jollof rice with gochujang marinated chicken. And slowly, the fear that had been choking Zola began to loosen its grip. She had a building, a dream, a man who loved her, a child growing inside her. Mrs. Park could throw all the money and power she wanted at them. But she couldn't take this away. That night, as Zola drifted off to sleep in Minjun's arms, she felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Peace. But across the city, Mrs. Park was making her final move. And this one would change everything. 6 months later, Zola stood in the center of Afro-Soul Kitchen and felt like she was standing in a dream made real. The space was perfect. Exposed brick walls softened with vibrant African textiles, Ankara prints in sunset oranges and deep purples. Reclaimed wood tables that could seat 80. An open kitchen where diners could watch chefs work. Pendant lights that cast warm golden glows. And everywhere, touches of both her worlds, Korean pottery holding African succulents, K&D music mixed with Afrobeats, a menu that celebrated fusion without losing authenticity. She was 6 months pregnant now, her belly round and obvious under her chef's jacket. The morning sickness had passed. The fear had lessened. And in its place was something fiercer, determination. You ready? Minjun asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist, his hands settling on her stomach. Terrified, Zola admitted. What if nobody comes? What if the food isn't good enough? What if? What if it's everything you dreamed it would be? Minjun interrupted softly. What if Soul falls in love with your food the way I fell in love with you? Zola turned in his arms and kissed him. Even after 6 months, even after all the battles they'd fought, kissing him still felt like coming home. Places, everyone. Chef Park, no relation to Minjun, called from the kitchen. We open in 10 minutes. Zola had hired a small but talented team. Chef Park, a Korean woman who'd trained in fusion cuisine. 2 sous chefs, 1 Nigerian, 1 Korean. A front-of-house manager who spoke 4 languages. Together, they'd created something magical. The first customers arrived exactly at 6 p.m. A young couple, nervous and excited. Then a family with 2 kids. Then a group of friends celebrating a birthday. By 7 p.m., every table was full. By 8 p.m., there was a line out the door. Zola moved through the dining room, greeting guests, explaining dishes, soaking in the joy on people's faces as they tasted her food. The jollof rice with gochujang chicken was a hit. The soya spice bulgogi tacos disappeared as fast as Chef Park could make them. The fusion dessert, puff puff filled with red bean paste, had people asking for seconds. Minjun sat at a corner table, watching her work with pride radiating from every line of his body. He'd kept his promise. This was her restaurant, her triumph. He was just there to support. But at 9 p.m., the atmosphere shifted. Kwon Jin-ho walked through the door. The business rival from months ago. The one who'd tried to blackmail Minjun. The one who'd lost that battle. He wasn't alone. Behind him were 3 men in expensive suits, food critics, Zola recognized. The kind who could make or destroy a restaurant with a single review. Minjun's jaw clenched. He started to stand, but Zola caught his eye and shook her head. Let me handle this, she mouthed. She walked to Kwan's table with her head high and her smile professional. Mr. Kwan, welcome to Afro-Soul Kitchen. Table for 4. Kwan's smile was all teeth. Miss Adeyemi. Or should I say Mrs. Park-to-be? I heard congratulations are in order. A restaurant and a baby. How ambitious. Just Zola's fine, she said coolly.
And thank you.
I've brought some of Seoul's finest food critics. I thought they should experience your fusion cuisine firsthand. The implication was clear. He'd brought critics to tear her apart in print, to destroy her dream before it could take root. Zola's smile never wavered. How thoughtful. Please sit. I'll send out our signature tasting menu. On the house, of course. She walked back to the kitchen, her heart hammering. Change of plans, she told Chef Park. Table 6 gets the best we've ever made. Perfect execution. Every dish. This is the meal that defines us. Chef Park nodded, understanding immediately. Understood, chef. For the next hour, the kitchen operated like a precision machine. Every plate that went to Kwan's table was art. The jollof rice was perfectly seasoned, each grain separate and glossy. The soya bulgogi tacos were balanced, spicy, sweet, savory all at once. The puff-puff dessert was warm and perfectly crisp, the red bean paste smooth as silk. Zola watched from the kitchen window as the critics ate. She saw the moment they tasted the jollof. Saw their eyes widen. Saw them lean in to take another bite. One critic pulled out a notebook and started writing furiously. Kwan's smug smile began to fade. When the meal was finished, one of the critics, an older woman known for her brutal honesty, stood and walked to the kitchen. Chef Adeyemi? Zola came out, wiping her hands on her apron. Yes, that was extraordinary, the critic said. True fusion. Not just mixing flavors, but creating something entirely new while respecting both traditions. You've done something special here. Zola felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you, she managed. I'll be writing about this. Seoul needs to know about Afro-Soul Kitchen. The critic left. The other two followed, both looking impressed despite themselves. Kwan sat alone at his table, his plan in ruins. Min-jun walked over to him. Zola couldn't hear what he said, but she saw Kwan's face go pale. Saw him nod once. Saw him leave without another word. When Min-jun returned to Zola, he was smiling. What did you say to him? She asked. That if he ever tries to hurt you or this restaurant again, I'll destroy every business deal he has in Seoul. And that you won tonight. Not because of me. Because you're brilliant. Zola laughed, high and bright with relief. The restaurant stayed packed until closing at midnight. When the last customer left, Zola's staff erupted in cheers. They'd done it. Opening night was a success. Zola stood in her empty restaurant, Min-jun beside her, and felt something settle in her chest. She belonged here. In Seoul. In this restaurant. With this man. Not because she'd compromised or hidden who she was, but because she'd built something beautiful from both her worlds. I'm proud of you, Min-jun said, pulling her close. We did this together, she corrected.
No.
You did this. I just gave you the space to be extraordinary. Their daughter kicked, hard enough that Min-jun felt it through Zola's chef's jacket. They both laughed. She's celebrating too, Zola said. She's going to be just like her mother. Strong.
Brilliant.
Unstoppable. But as they locked up the restaurant and headed home, neither of them noticed the car parked across the street. Or the woman inside it, watching with cold calculation. Mrs. Park had been quiet for 6 months, biding her time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And watching her son's happiness, watching that foreign woman succeed, watching her grandchild grow inside someone she deemed unworthy, it was more than she could tolerate. She made a call. It's time, she said into the phone. File the papers tomorrow. I want full custody. The war wasn't over. It was just the legal papers arrived 3 days after the restaurant's opening. Zola was in the kitchen prepping for lunch service when Min-jun burst through the back door, his face ashen. She's suing for custody, he said without preamble. My mother. She's filed a lawsuit claiming you're an unfit mother. The knife slipped from Zola's hand, clattering against the cutting board. What? Minjun handed her the legal documents. Zola's hands shook as she read. Petition for emergency custody. Grounds: mother's instability, foreign national status, questionable moral character, high-stress work environment endangering pregnancy.
Every word was a knife.
She can't do this, Zola whispered. The baby isn't even born yet. She's claiming that as my mother, she has rights to ensure the well-being of her grandchild. She's using Korean family law, the traditional structure that gives grandparents significant say. And she's arguing that you're a flight risk, that you'll take the baby back to Nigeria the moment she's born. That's insane. I have a restaurant here, a life here. I'm not going anywhere. She knows that. This isn't about winning custody. It's about destroying you, making your life so miserable that you leave voluntarily. Zola sank onto a stool, one hand pressed to her swollen belly. What do we do? We fight. I've already called our lawyer. We have a hearing in 2 weeks. The next 2 weeks were hell. Mrs. Park's legal team was vicious. They dug up everything: photos of Zola entering Minjun's penthouse during her employment, testimony from former JS Holdings employees claiming she'd manipulated Minjun, even medical records showing the stress-induced bleeding. They painted her as a gold-digging foreigner who'd trapped a vulnerable man with a pregnancy, as someone unstable, opportunistic, unfit to raise a child in Korean society. The hearing was held in family court. Zola sat beside Minjun, 7 months pregnant and exhausted, facing a judge who looked like he'd already made up his mind. Mrs. Park's lawyer stood and presented their case with surgical precision. Your Honor, we're here today because a child's well-being is at stake. Miss Adeyemi is a foreign national with no family support in Korea. She works 16-hour days in a high-stress environment. She has a history of medical complications during this pregnancy. And most concerning, she has demonstrated a pattern of deception, hiding the pregnancy from the father, attempting to flee the country, only staying when financially incentivized. Zola's nails dug into her palms. Mrs. Park, as the paternal grandmother, has the resources, stability, and cultural understanding to ensure this child is raised properly. We're not asking to remove the child from the mother entirely. We're asking for joint custody with Mrs. Park as primary guardian, given Miss Adeyemi's circumstances. Their lawyer sat down, looking satisfied. Minjun's lawyer stood, a fierce woman named Attorney Kim who'd built her career defending women's rights. Your Honor, this case is not about a child's well-being. It's about control. Mrs. Park has never met Miss Adeyemi, has never asked about her grandchild's health, has never offered support or assistance. Instead, she's waged a campaign of harassment, including leaking private information to the press, threatening Miss Adeyemi's livelihood, and now this lawsuit. Attorney Kim pulled out documents. Miss Adeyemi is not unstable. She's an entrepreneur who built a successful restaurant from the ground up. She has prenatal care from Seoul's best obstetrician. She has a partner who is fully committed to co-parenting. And yes, she's a foreign national, but that doesn't make her unfit. It makes her brave. She chose to build a life in a country that hasn't always welcomed her. As for deception, Miss Adeyemi was afraid. Afraid of exactly this. Afraid that loving Mr. Park would mean losing her autonomy, her choices, her child. And this lawsuit proves she was right to be afraid. The judge looked at Zola. Miss Adeyemi, would you like to speak? Zola stood, her legs shaking. Your Honor, I came to Seoul 3 years ago with nothing but a degree and a dream. I worked 16-hour days because I had to, because I'm Nigerian in a country that doesn't always see me, because I'm a woman in a male-dominated industry, because I had to prove I belonged. Her voice grew stronger. I didn't trap Mr. Park. I fell in love with him. And when I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. Not because I didn't want the baby, but because I knew exactly this would happen. I'd be judged, attacked, told I wasn't good enough. She looked at Mrs. Park. You've never asked me about your grandchild. Never asked what I'm naming her, what her heartbeat sounds like if she kicks at night. You don't want custody because you care about her. You want it because You can't stand that I exist, that I love your son, that I'm building a life here. Tears streamed down her face. My daughter will be both Nigerian and Korean. She'll eat jollof rice and kimchi. She'll speak Yoruba and Korean. She'll be proof that love crosses borders. And I will raise her to be proud of both her worlds, whether you approve or not.
She sat down, exhausted.
The judge was quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Park, do you have anything to say? Mrs. Park stood, her designer suit immaculate, her face cold. I'm protecting my family legacy. My grandchild deserves better than. Enough. Minjun stood. He'd been silent through the entire hearing, but now his voice cut through the courtroom like a blade. Mother, this ends now. You claim to care about family legacy? You destroyed our family the day you spent our last one chasing a man who didn't want to be found. You chose obsession over your son. And now you're doing it again, choosing control over connection. He turned to the judge. Your Honor, I'm prepared to sign an affidavit terminating all parental rights my mother might claim. She will have no legal standing regarding my child. None. Mrs. Park's face went white. You wouldn't dare. I already have, Minjun said coldly. He handed documents to the judge. Legal severance of grandparental rights. Filed this morning. If you pursue this custody case, you lose all rights to ever see your grandchild. If you drop it now, I'll give you supervised visitation. Once a month. On our terms. The courtroom went silent. Mrs. Park stared at her son like she didn't recognize him. You choose her over me, she whispered. I'm choosing my family, Minjun said.
Zola.
Our daughter. The life we're building. You can be part of that family if you accept them. Or you can be a stranger. Your choice. Mrs. Park looked at the judge. At her lawyer.
At Zola.
And slowly, something in her expression cracked. Her voice broke. I just wanted what was best. Then let them be happy. The judge said quietly. Mrs. Park, I'm dismissing this case. There are no grounds for custody. These parents are fit, loving, and committed. If you continue this harassment, I will issue a restraining order. He looked at Minjun and Zola. Go home. Take care of each other. Raise your daughter in love. That's all any child needs. Zola burst into tears. Minjun pulled her close, his own eyes wet. They'd won. Not just the case, but their right to build a life together.
To be a family.
As they left the courthouse, Mrs. Park stood alone in the corridor. Zola paused. Turn back. The offer stands, she said quietly. If you want to be part of your granddaughter's life. But you have to accept all of us. No conditions. No control. Just family. Mrs. Park's eyes glistened. I don't know how, she admitted. I've controlled everything for so long. I don't know how to just let go.
Then learn, Zola said.
We have 9 months before she's born. That's time enough to try. She walked away, leaving Mrs. Park with a choice. Change or lose everything. The lunch rush at Afro-Soul Kitchen was in full swing. Zola moved through the dining room with practiced ease, a 3-month-old baby strapped to her chest in a vibrant Anchor print carrier. The baby, Ao Minjun Park, named for joy in Yoruba and her father in Korean, slept peacefully despite the noise and chaos around her. The restaurant had been featured in every major food publication in Seoul. The fusion concept that critics had once doubted was now celebrated. Lines formed outside the door, every night. And Zola had just been approached about opening a second location. But more than the success, more than the accolades, what made Zola's heart full was this. She belonged. In the corner booth, Minjun sat with his laptop, ostensibly working but mostly watching his wife and daughter with an expression of such pure contentment it made regular customers smile. The glacier had melted completely. These days, he left work at 6. He changed diapers. He sang Korean lullabies off-key. He'd learned to make jollof rice almost as well as Zola's mother. He was, in every way that mattered, a different man. Table for one? The hostess asked. Zola looked up and froze. Mrs. Park stood in the doorway, elegant as always, but something in her posture was different. Uncertain. Almost humble. Table for one, Mrs. Park confirmed quietly. This was the first time she'd come to the restaurant. In the year since the custody case, she'd maintained her distance, slowly, carefully trying to rebuild a relationship with Min-jun through supervised visits and stilted phone calls. She'd never met her granddaughter. Zola made a decision. Actually, Zola said, there's a table in the back. More private. Follow me. She led Mrs. Park to a quiet corner table. Min-jun looked up, saw his mother, and his entire body tensed. But Zola placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. It's okay, she said softly. Mrs. Park sat across from her son, her eyes immediately drawn to the sleeping baby on Zola's chest. She's beautiful, Mrs. Park whispered. Her name is Ao, Zola said. It means joy. Would you like to hold her? Mrs. Park's eyes filled with tears. May I? Zola carefully unstrapped the carrier and placed Ao in her grandmother's arms. Mrs. Park held her granddaughter with a tenderness Zola had never seen from her. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she looked at the baby's face, a perfect blend of Nigerian and Korean features, dark curls and monolid eyes, her father's nose, and her mother's full lips. She has your eyes, Min-jun, Mrs. Park said, her voice breaking. And Zola's strength, Min-jun said quietly. Already. She doesn't let anything stop her when she wants something. Mrs. Park looked at Zola.
I was wrong, she said.
About everything.
About you.
About what my son needed. About what family means. You were afraid, Zola said gently. I understand that. But fear doesn't have to define us. I've been seeing someone. A therapist. She's helping me understand why I needed control so badly. Why I pushed everyone away. Mrs. Park looked at her son. I failed you as a mother, Min-jun. I let my obsession with your father destroy our relationship. I don't expect forgiveness. But I want to try.
To be better. For you.
For Ao. Min-jun's jaw worked with emotion. It's going to take time, he said. A lot of time. But if you're willing to put in the work, then yes. We can try. Mrs. Park nodded, tears still falling as she gazed at her granddaughter. Thank you, she whispered. Both of you. For giving me a chance I don't deserve. Everyone deserves a chance to change, Zola said. They sat together for an hour. Mrs. Park held Ao. Min-jun told his mother about the baby's first smile, her first laugh, how she loved being sung to in both Korean and Yoruba. And slowly, carefully, a family began to heal. When Mrs. Park finally left, she paused at the door. Your restaurant is extraordinary, she said to Zola. You should be very proud. I am, Zola said. And thank you for coming. After she left, Min-jun pulled Zola and Ao close. You're remarkable, he said. After everything she put you through, you still gave her grace. She's Ao's grandmother, Zola said simply. And everyone deserves a chance to be part of something beautiful. That evening, after the restaurant closed, Zola and Min-jun sat on the rooftop terrace they'd added above the kitchen. Souls sprawled beneath them, glittering and alive. Ao slept in her carrier, content and safe between her parents. Do you ever regret it?
Min-jun asked.
Staying? Fighting? All of it. Zola looked at him, this man who'd trapped her in his penthouse and somehow become her home. This man who'd learned to cook jollof rice and change diapers and sing off-key lullabies. This man who'd chosen her, over and over, when it would have been easier to let her go. Not for a single second, she said. You? Never, he said. You gave me a family. A real one. Built on love, not obligation. You gave me Ao. You gave me everything. He pulled out a small velvet box. Zola's breath caught. I know we've done this backward, Min-jun said, opening the box to reveal a ring, simple, elegant, a band of platinum with a single diamond. Baby first, restaurant second, falling in love somewhere in the middle. But I want to do this right. Zola Adeyemi, will you marry me? Not because you're pregnant. Not because of Ao. But because I love you. Because you're my partner. Because I want to spend the rest of my life learning from you, growing with you, building dreams with you. Zola laughed through her tears. We really did do this backward, she said.
But yes.
Yes, I'll marry you. I'd marry you 1,000 times. He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her as the city lights sparkled around them and their daughter slept peacefully, proof that love could cross borders, cultures, and every obstacle thrown in its path. To new beginnings, Minjun whispered. To family, Zola corrected. To us, they said together. And somewhere below them, in the restaurant Zola had built with her own hands, with Minjun's support and her own fierce determination, the lights glowed warm and welcoming. Afro Kitchen, a place where cultures met and married, where jollof rice and kimchi lived side by side, where a Nigerian woman and a Korean man had proven that love was stronger than prejudice, stronger than fear, stronger than anything that tried to tear them apart. It was a monument to fusion, to courage, to choosing love even when the world said it was impossible. And as Seoul's night sky blazed with stars, Zola Adeyemi, soon to be Zola Park, chef, entrepreneur, mother, fighter, knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. Home wasn't a place. It was this man, this baby, this life they'd fought for. And it was perfect. They said it was impossible. A Nigerian woman and a Korean CEO. Different worlds, different cultures. But love doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't care about borders or bloodlines. It just is. Zola fought for her dreams. Minjun fought for his family. Together, they built something beautiful. Afro Kitchen stands in Itaewon today, a monument to fusion, to courage, to love. And somewhere in Seoul, a little girl named Ao grows up knowing she belongs to both worlds. The end. Tell us in the comments. What was your favorite moment from this story? Did Minjun's mother deserve redemption? Should we write more fusion romance stories? Subscribe for more stories that celebrate love across cultures. Like, if this story touched your heart, share with someone who needs to believe in love. Thank you for being part of this journey, Midnight Dreamers. Your support made this story possible. Until the next story, thank you for watching.